Hello, this is Georgios, an astrologer and an expert on family trauma. In this video, I will be talking about Nessus, the guardian at the threshold. Nessus is an asteroid, and like all asteroids, they express a darker masculine or darker feminine aspect of the collective. This is an archetype that is more occult, hidden. As all the asteroids of the Kuiper belt, which are the Centaurs, which belong to the domain of Pluto, Nessus is one of the largest of the Centaurs, representing the wounded darker masculine of the Avenger or the Infiltrator archetype. When meditating on this asteroid, I have found that it arrives in the shape of a hooded or a cloaked figure. Because Nessus, to understand this archetype, is to go back to the myth and why this particular name has a certain symbolic meaning. Now, in the ancient myth, Nessus was a boatsman for a boat that led into the underworld. And he had sex with Hercules' wife. He stole his wife from him, after which Hercules shot an arrow into his back. Nessus, before he died, told Hercules' wife that he should take his blood, for it would give Hercules a certain advantage, a certain benefit. Of course, his blood was poisoned, and it was a trick. But his wife, a few years later, took the blood and she put it into a tunic for Hercules to wear. Hercules put the poisoned tunic on, and shortly after that he died. So not only did Nessus die in the myth of the story, but Hercules died with him. So you see, there's this situation revolving around backstabbing, betrayal, killing those who want to kill you, having a no-win situation. Because obviously none of you are getting out of this alive, right? So to understand Nessus is to understand where people go into a situation like this, where you literally kamikaze suicide the enemy to get what you want. Nessus relates to the certain examples. One example being a Chinese kamikaze bomber, another a Japanese assassin of kings. In ancient Japan, the survival chance of an assassin was next to zero. You could also think about the religious terrorist, example being the 9/11 plane attack. The terrorists knew that they would not survive. And you can also think about the nuclear plant saboteur, the activist that would go into the plant and give his life to destroy it. You can think about the infiltrator, and you can think about the Avenger. In the anime, that is also Japanese, by the way, ironically speaking, Naruto, in Naruto Shippuden, Sasuke wants to avenge his clan and his family by promising that he will destroy his entire village, because the king of the village has ordered the murder of his family, so now everybody in that village has to suffer for their compliance. Nessus is also a thief, which is why I use images for the reference in the game of Thief, because it is a good reference. It is also a reference to Robin Hood, Hood, Nessus being a cloaked figure. Steal from the rich and give to the poor. Take from those who are corrupt and give it back to those whom it belongs. So Nessus is the glorious activist. And Nessus, in its symbolic meaning, has also different shapes. His mask that Nessus wears hides his face, for his is the face of betrayal. Betrayal because his role is to infiltrate the enemy, to strike at the heart of enemy territory, where he has to be incognito in order to infiltrate. When his betrayal is revealed, it is usually too late, as Nessus transforms into a dagger that pierces through your defenses, where his strike is sudden, swift, occult, and hidden. The hidden blade in Assassin's Creed is also a good example of Nessus. When an assassin strikes you from the shadows, that is what you're dealing with. And that is why it's a masculine archetype, because it's quite brutal, but its purpose is not simply to go for what you want, but it is to bring down corrupt governments, corrupt authorities. When Nessus is triggered, it feels like if you have it in the natal chart and a transit aspects your Nessus, we have to talk about also how Nessus interacts in the chart. And usually I experience it from observing my clients, that it feels like the client is poisoned. Like he's very sick, fatigued, depressed, like he's breaking down. There's some kind of experience of collapse when you are left to die. And nothing seems to be working anymore. What has to happen for Nessus is to come out of the shadows so that he can strike. Because Nessus takes his time to strike the enemy, he's waiting for the right moment. And when the right moment has been found, and the shadow has been revealed, which is the shadow that has been in control of us, through self-imposed rules and regulations that keep us prisoners to the matrix and to the collective. And so Nessus is an archetype that, like the other darker asteroids, is shamed and blamed. For he is the one who promises us liberation and protection from those evil authorities. Through treachery and the misuse of power, those authorities have enslaved us. And now Nessus gives us courage to cut the wires and burn the bridges, to transform into a dagger that pierces through the stomach, to get out all the repressed, blocked, hidden emotions that were locked behind inside our bodies. Because like all Plutonian asteroids, this is not just an archetype, oh yeah, I'm just going to bring the government down. No. This is happening inside of you. The battle is wrought within. It's not about fighting an enemy in the external world. It's about transforming yourself. After all, belonging to the domain of Pluto, Nessus is a helper that arrives, often in the shape of a gatekeeper, that doesn't seem to allow us to succeed. Nessus is the force that transforms this gatekeeper, that brings him down with a dagger into his back, striking with a devastating blow. And of course, this blow is stricken from the armoring inside the body. It relates to a family trauma or an inheritance in which we have been betrayed by family members. Nessus by the house, the sign, the aspect, whatever aspect you have with Nessus, that is the aspect that is betrayed and repressed by the family. There's usually some experience of very, very rigid dictatorship, tyrannical control that is being imposed upon you. And Nessus arrives in the shape of an abuser, somebody who won't allow us to simply just express this. If you have Nessus on the moon, he won't allow us to express our emotions, our intimate feelings, our subjective reality. Subjective instinct is being denied and repressed, and Nessus usually resolves only in one way, through a separation conflict. Like all the asteroids, there has to be a separation conflict. Like Lilith, where you separate from the Garden of Eden. With Chiron, where you separate from the disease that struck you. And now you are separating from those who betrayed you. and to betray them in return. To get out of a double-bind situation, the no-win situation in which they are enforcing the tyrannical rules upon you, to bring this planet that Nessus is expecting down, which only upon further examination offers a solution so the shadow can be overcome. Nessus in the original myth creates a poison tunic to give to Heracles. So of course, essentially inside our bodies, inside our natal chart, there is a poison tunic that we have chosen to wear. We have been promised that if we take this poison tunic on, that we will be saved, that we will be taken care of. As long as we maintain the tunic, as long as we maintain this cloak, this hood, as long as we remain hidden, everything will be fine. Of course, this is a lie, and it is imposed through tyrannical threats of punishment and condemnation should we allow ourselves to come forth from the shadows. Do you understand that this is what Nessus is about? So you are wearing a hooded expression, a cloak. You're hiding from the enemy because the enemy promises that if you maintain your hood and your cloak, then everything will be fine. But should you come out, you will be destroyed. So it's quite threatening. And that is why Nessus connects us to a strong, powerful emotions, negative affects, passions, but also often jealousy or hatred, bitterness for having allowed ourselves to be put in this situation in the first place, for having allowed the enemy to take control. Nessus is probably the strongest centaur among the first three, because it is about feeling that you need to do something righteous to break you out, even if it seems to be cruel. And assassins often think so, but its cruel means that it is through the darkness that we come back to the light. And so it is shunned as by the collective to be inhuman, to be psychopathic in nature. Nessus represents deep and sudden transformation by intense shock and pain. And from my personal studies, I am convinced that Nessus deals with shame, being shamed for expressing how you feel, for expressing this planet, this aspect, this house, being invalidated, not being mirrored or understood, feeling like retreating into a shell, wanting to cut people off, to cut all wires, to cut all attachments, to completely immerse yourself into a nocturnal realm, to get rid of everything that you are attached to. But in the end, the only way to transform is to hold the tyrant accountable, to recognize the enemy, to recognize the poison that you've chosen to wear, to destroy the source of shame, which is not you, but there's an enemy out there that betrayed you, and now you have to separate from this enemy. You have to go rogue. And that is when we see finally the kamikaze bomber, the assassin of kings, the infiltrator, the avenger, the thief, the Robin Hood, the infiltrator that will do whatever it takes to take the enemy out. So, that is basically it. That is Nessus in a nutshell. If you have Nessus in houses 1 to 12, if you have Nessus in the natal chart, which of course you do, there will be another video explaining how Nessus happens through different houses. But should you have a prominent Nessus placement, like a conjunction to an angle, to a primary planet, then there is often an experience of powerlessness and feeling extremely vulnerable to lose yourself, to allow yourself to be expressed, to come forth. So you tend to become enmeshed with other people and you lose yourself with their planet. Their planet is taking control of yours. Of that where Nessus occupies the area in your chart. This is usually where we make sacrifices because we are hiding what we want. Eventually we come to a breaking point, the point of giving up. To hide a critical aspect of ourselves takes a tremendous amount of energy. And it's not going to work forever. And finally, when we are able to cut the wires and drop our defenses, to let the roots collapse, that is when the inner psychopath arises. It represents indifference. It's a psychopath that arises when the borderliner, in psychology, has been pushed to the edge of insanity. Nessus also takes over when all hope seems lost, and there's a final confrontation, a final ultimatum that needs to be shown. So it has very Plutonian qualities. In the end, you have to become the guardian at the threshold. And what is the guardian guarding? The guardian guards your sanity, your true self. The guardian is an avenger of that which has been betrayed, repressed, and shamed. I think the guardian is a good term for Nessus. Because you are protecting yourself, you aren't out to get other people. You're not someone malicious. You know, that's usually when we think about Nessus, we think about something very evil, you know, somebody very dangerous, like a murderer. But really, it's a protector. And sometimes a protector comes in the shape of a daredevil. Somebody who has a very bad reputation. So often there's also a loss of reputation, a loss of face. Of course, you know, if Nessus is about hiding your face, it's because if you are going to show your face, you're going to lose your face, essentially. And this is something that you have to accept. The only way to integrate this archetype of the Avenger is to allow your face to be dropped. And of course, you don't want to be caught by the police, right? You don't want to be caught by the authorities, by whoever is going to rat you out. Because there are the rats in the collective, right? Those who will gossip you, smear campaigns, narcissists and psychopaths, but also flying monkeys. Everybody who wants to ruin your reputation because you have allowed yourself to be yourself. That is something that you have to integrate and accept with this archetype. Otherwise, there's no chance, you know. The only way for this archetype to actually come out of a collective is, of course, if you allow the collective to shame you, because the collective hates everything that Nessus stands for, simply because that is how it works with the asteroids. But I have found that once you no longer expect that there will be negative consequences that are very severe should you express this. Once you have worked on integrating this for a while, it gets much easier and you will no longer expect to be smeared. And when you no longer expect it, that is when it no longer happens. And you can share Nessus in a healthy way, and other people will praise you. They may even mystify you. They may fall in love with this very beautiful archetype that is actually very, very fascinating, because everybody longs for an avenger. Everybody longs for somebody who take the coat of arms, who takes matters into his own hands to protect the collective from those who are corrupt. I mean, who wouldn't want that? You know? Of course, when you give the collective what they want, and suddenly you have a smear campaigns on your hands. So that's the irony of this archetype. Everybody wants it, but everybody hates it. The love-hate relationship with this. But there's a silver lining. Because if you can integrate this, if you understand all of this, what I've just told you about Nessus, if you know what Nessus is about, then you're not going to be afraid of it. You know what you have to do, and you know what the consequences for it are going to be. You just have to do it. Now that you have the knowledge that you need to understand that the consequences are unavoidable, then you will have the courage to do what needs to be done. I hope you liked this interpretation of Nessus, which is an interpretation I've come up with over the time of studying this through my own experience, because I couldn't find anything about Nessus online. If you try to go online, what are you going to find? Pretty much nothing. But my channel provides an interpretation of the asteroids which we haven't seen before. Something which finally sheds some light on the repressed conditions, the repressed archetypes here, which are all inside of us. We all have a little Nessus. And if we do not allow the shadow to be revealed, then the shadow will control us from the background, and we do not want that. We want to be illuminating the path. By illuminating that which is yet to reveal itself, which is yet to express itself, so we can give it form through self-awareness of what this thing that has not yet expressed is really about. And when you know, then it's very, very easy. Very easy indeed. I hope you liked this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. And thanks for watching.